Oh my gosh, James. Okay, I have to tell you what happened to me this morning before we do anything else because I am still thinking about it.
Oh no, good thing or bad thing?
Honestly, I don't know. So I went to my usual coffee shop, right? The one on Fifth, you know it.
Yeah, with the little chalkboard menus.
Exactly. And they have this new seasonal menu, and there was something called, I kid you not, a smoked rosemary lavender oat latte with a black pepper finish. And I thought, okay, that sounds absolutely unhinged. But you know what? I ordered it
No way. Black pepper? In coffee? Eva.
in coffee. And here's the thing, it was actually kind of amazing. Like the first sip, I made a face. I'm not going to lie. The barista was watching me very carefully. But by the third sip, I was completely converted. I almost ordered a second one.
That is simultaneously the most disgusting and most inspiring thing I've heard all week. I respect it. I would never do it, but I respect it.
You are such a coward, James.
A happy, predictable coward with my regular flat white, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, on that note, welcome everyone to the English Coffee Talk Show. I'm Eva.
And I'm James, and we are so glad you're here with us today.
This is the show where we chat about real-life topics in natural, everyday English, and we designed it especially for people who are learning English and want to hear the language used the way it actually sounds in real conversations, not textbook English, real English.
Real, messy, full of idioms, sometimes confusing English, but that's what makes it fun. And today we are talking about something that so many people think about, changing your life. Like actually changing it, not just writing a resolution in January and forgetting about it by February 3rd.
February 3rd is being very specific and very called out right now.
I speak from personal experience. We'll get into that.
We're going to talk about small habits, mindset shifts, the things that actually work, and throughout the whole conversation, we'll be teaching you some really useful English phrases and idioms that native speakers use all the time when they talk about self-improvement and personal growth. So stick with us. It's gonna be a good one.
All right, so how do we actually change our lives? Like, where do we even start with this?
You know, I think the first thing, and I know this sounds a little cliche, but the first thing is just deciding to actually start. And I know that sounds so obvious, but hear me out. Most people spend so much time planning to change that they never actually do anything. And at some point, you just have to, as they say, bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet, yeah.
So bite the bullet, this is a great phrase to learn. It means to force yourself to do something difficult or unpleasant that you've been avoiding. The idea is that it might be uncomfortable, but you just do it anyway. So you might say, I had been putting off going to the dentist for 2 years, but I finally bit the bullet and made the appointment. It shows courage in the face of something hard.
That's such a good one, and it really does apply here because, like, the hardest part of any change is usually just getting started. You can research and plan all you want, but eventually you just have to take that first step.
Okay, so can I tell my story? Because I have a real example of this from my own life that I think people will relate to.
Please, yes, go for it.
Okay, so about 3 years ago, I decided I was going to build a proper morning routine. My first attempt was way too ambitious. I tried to completely overhaul everything overnight, and I crashed and burned within 2 weeks. But the thing that changed everything when I tried again, and this is really such an important concept, was baby steps. And this is a phrase worth knowing. Baby steps means making very small, manageable changes instead of trying to do everything at once. Like a baby learning to walk, you don't just start running, you take one tiny step at a time.
Right, baby steps.
So this time around, I told myself, just wake up 15 minutes earlier than usual. That's it. No journaling, no running, just 15 minutes. And I did that for 2 weeks. Then I added 5 minutes of stretching. Then I started making fresh coffee in the morning, which honestly felt like the biggest win. Slowly, over about 4 months, I had built this routine that I genuinely loved and could actually stick to.
That is such a good point. And the key thing there is that it actually lasted. Because I think we all know the feeling of a big dramatic change that disappears after 2 weeks.
Totally. And that's actually connected to something called the compounding effect. This is a phrase you'll hear a lot in self-improvement conversations. It comes from finance originally, the idea that small investments grow significantly over time because they build on each other, and it applies perfectly to habits. If you improve just 1% every single day, those tiny gains stack up and multiply. After a year, you are not just 1% better, you are dramatically, measurably better. But it requires patience because the progress is invisible at first. So for ESL learners, you can use the compounding effect when you talk about gradual growth. Like, I've been practicing English for 20 minutes every day, and after 6 months, the compounding effect really kicked in. My fluency jumped significantly. It's a really impressive phrase to use in conversation, and that is exactly the compounding effect at work. You might study and feel like nothing is happening for weeks, and then suddenly one day you're watching a TV show and you understand everything. That's it happening in real time. Okay, James, your turn. Tell me your story, because I know you've had your own journey with trying to change things.
Oh, where do I even begin? Okay, so my story is about procrastination because I was a world-class procrastinator. Like if procrastination were an Olympic sport, I would have multiple gold medals and the sponsorship deal.
A sponsorship deal from who? Netflix?
Netflix, YouTube, just the ceiling of my bedroom, where I would lie and stare and think about doing things instead of doing them. So a few years back, I decided I wanted to learn to play the guitar. I had always wanted to do it. It was one of those dreams I had carried around with me for like 10 years. And so one December, I said, new year, new me. I'm going to learn guitar. I'm going to turn over a new leaf.
Oh, turn over a new leaf. Good one. Let's explain that.
Right, so to turn over a new leaf means to make a fresh start and change your behavior for the better. The leaf here actually refers to a page of a book, turning over a new page, a new chapter. So it's about leaving your old habits behind and beginning again. You'd say something like, after graduating, she decided to turn over a new leaf and take her health more seriously. It has this really hopeful, optimistic feeling to it.
I love that one. Okay, so you turned over a new leaf. What happened?
So for the first few weeks, I was genuinely committed, practicing every evening, learning chords, making real progress. But there's always a but. February happened. Work got busy, I missed one session, then two, then a week passed, and I basically fell off the wagon completely.
Fell off the wagon. Okay, this is such a useful phrase. Let's pause and explain this one.
Yes, so to fall off the wagon means to stop following a good habit or commitment that you had been keeping. Originally, this phrase was used to describe someone who had quit drinking alcohol and then started again. But now we use it much more broadly for any kind of commitment you give up. I was going to the gym every day, but I fell off the wagon when the holidays started. It's a really common, natural expression.
And I think what's important and what a lot of people don't realize is that falling off the wagon is normal. It is part of the process. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human.
Oh, 100%. And that was actually the mindset shift I had to make. Because when I fell off the wagon with guitar, my immediate reaction was shame. I felt so bad about myself. And the guitar just sat in the corner of my room and I almost couldn't look at it because it felt like evidence of my failure. It had become the symbol of I said I would and I didn't.
That is so real. The shame spiral is real, and it's actually a trap, right? Because the shame makes you avoid the thing, which means you get further and further from it.
Exactly. And the guitar sat there for 3 months. 3 months! Until a friend of mine came over and just picked it up and started messing around with it. And I watched her and something clicked. I thought, I am a creature of habit. And right now, my habit is avoiding this thing. I need to change the habit, not beat myself up about the past. A creature of habit.
I love this phrase. So this means that someone naturally tends to do the same things repeatedly. They are comfortable with routine and struggle to change. It's not necessarily negative. We all are creatures of habit to some degree. You might say, my dad is such a creature of habit. He orders the same meal at every restaurant. And it's very common to use this phrase in the context of self-improvement.
Right. And what I realize is that if I'm a creature of habit, then my best strategy is to make the good behavior the habit, not to fight against my nature, but to use it. So instead of trying to force myself into long practice sessions, I just put the guitar on my sofa. Not in its case, not in the corner, right there on the sofa. So every time I sat down to watch TV, it was just there.
Oh, that's smart. Reducing friction.
Exactly, reducing friction. And some evenings I'd just pick it up for 5 minutes, not because I was practicing, just because it was there. And gradually, those 5 minutes turned into 15, then 20. And about 4 months later, I was playing 3 full songs. Badly, but completely.
Badly, but completely. Honestly, that's the goal at first. And I think that connects to something so important, which is the mindset of taking it one day at a time. Because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed when they look at the whole mountain, you know? They think about how far they have to go and they feel paralyzed.
Totally. One day at a time.
Yes, take it one day at a time. This is such a warm, supportive phrase. It means to not worry about the whole future or the big picture all at once, but just to focus on what you can do today. It's often used when someone is going through a hard time or facing a long challenge. You might say to a friend, don't stress about finishing the whole course. Just take it one day at a time. It's encouraging and realistic at the same time.
And it pairs really well with what we said about baby steps. Like, baby steps is about the size of your actions. Taking it one day at a time is about the size of your thinking. Together, they're really powerful.
That is such a good way to put it. Okay, I want to talk about something that I think is the biggest invisible obstacle for most people who want to change their lives, and it doesn't get talked about enough. And that is the problem of getting in your own way.
Oh, yes. Getting out of your own way. This is huge.
So the phrase is get out of your own way, and it means to stop letting your own fears, doubts, negative self-talk, or self-sabotaging behaviors block your progress. Basically, sometimes we are our own biggest obstacle. You might say, she had all the talent in the world. She just needed to get out of her own way. It's a powerful phrase because it puts the responsibility, but also the power, back in your own hands.
Right. And I think for me, the way I got in my own way was through perfectionism. Like, if I couldn't practice guitar perfectly, if I couldn't make the chords sound exactly right, some part of my brain said, well, then what's the point? And that voice, that critical, perfectionist voice, that was the thing that kept making me stop.
And that connects to a really great phrase. It's easier said than done. This is one of those phrases that native speakers use constantly. It means that something sounds simple or obvious when you talk about it, but is actually much harder to do in real life. You'd say, staying calm under pressure is easier said than done. Or saving money sounds easy, but it's easier said than done when you have bills piling up. It acknowledges the gap between knowing and doing. And that gap is real.
And I think that's actually what makes this topic so interesting and so personal, because advice is easy to give. Living it is hard, and everyone's journey looks completely different.
Completely. And I think one thing that helped me a lot, and this is a mindset thing more than a tactic, was thinking about the long run. Like, not what I'd feel tomorrow or even next week, but what would my life look like in a year, 5 years, if I kept doing this small thing consistently?
In the long run. Yeah.
Exactly. In the long run is a really versatile phrase that means over a long period of time or ultimately when everything is considered. It helps you think beyond the immediate discomfort. For example, exercising every day is tiring in the moment, but in the long run, it's one of the best things you can do for your health. It encourages patience and perspective. ESL learners, write this one down. You can use in the long run in almost any conversation about planning, investments, health, careers, relationships. It's incredibly useful.
Right. So the habits are the evidence you collect that proves to yourself who you are. Every time you sit down and practice, every time you show up, you're voting for the identity, even if it's imperfect, even if it's just 5 minutes.
Voting for the identity. I really like that framing. Okay, I think we should start heading toward our wrap-up, but before we do, I want to ask you, if someone listening right now is at the very beginning, they want to change something in their life, they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, what is the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Honestly, just start. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not when the conditions feel perfect because they never will. Just do one tiny thing today. Put the guitar on the sofa, wake up 10 minutes earlier, write one sentence in English. Whatever your version of that is, just do it today. That is the whole secret. Bite the bullet, take the first baby step, and trust the process.
That is beautiful. And my one piece of advice would be kind to yourself when you mess up, because you will mess up. That is guaranteed. The question is whether you use that as a reason to stop or just as information. Every stumble is just data. It tells you something about where you need to adjust. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It means you're learning.
Be kind to yourself. Such an important one. All right, let's do our wrap up. Hit me with the key takeaways, Eva.
Okay, so big picture, here's what we talked about today. Number 1, you have to actually start. Bite the bullet, stop planning forever, and take the first step. Number 2, use baby steps. Don't try to overhaul your entire life at once. Small, consistent actions are far more powerful than dramatic changes that don't last. Number 3, lean into the compounding effect. Tiny improvements stack up into massive results over time. Be patient with the process. Number 4, expect to fall off the wagon. It happens to everyone. The goal isn't to never fall off, it's to get back on as quickly as possible, ideally by the next day.
Never miss twice.
Never miss twice. And number 5, think about the long run. When today feels hard and pointless, zoom out. Picture yourself a year from now. That perspective is everything.
And on the mindset side, recognize that you are a creature of habit. Use that. Design your environment so the good behavior becomes the default. Get out of your own way by catching and challenging that inner critic. Take it one day at a time instead of being overwhelmed by the mountain. And most importantly, remember, change is easier said than done, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it requires practice, compassion, and time. All right, that's it from us today. Thank you so much for spending this time with Eva and me. We'll be back soon with another episode, another great conversation, more real English, and almost certainly more discussion about coffee.
Always more coffee. Until then, keep going, keep practicing, be kind to yourself, and take it one day at a time. You've got this. We genuinely believe that. Oh, before we actually disappear, one small thing. If you've been enjoying the show, please hit subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. It genuinely takes 2 seconds, and it means you'll never miss an episode. That's really the single best way to support what we're doing here, and we'd love to have you with us every time.
And if your app has notifications, turn them on. That way, you'll know the moment a new episode drops. Also, if you felt like leaving us a review, that would honestly make our day. It helps other people find the show, and we read every single one. So if you've got a couple of minutes and you want to share your thoughts, we would really, truly appreciate it. No pressure, but okay, a little pressure. Just a tiny bit. Bye, and maybe try a weird coffee order this week. You might surprise yourself.
Black pepper latte. Life-changing, trust me.